should the New England Patriots be on this list?
You know, when you look at the New England Patriots, you think to yourself, okay, the best team that they had didn't win it, right? The best team is 18-1, right? Randy Moss, 23 touchdowns. Tom Brady, MVP.
What year
throws
was that?
50 touchdowns. It was.
I'll look it up.
Is it 2012?
When he threw 50
That
touchdowns?
one?
That was 2007.
07.
Yeah.
07, right.
That's with Randy Moss.
Right, Randy Moss, right.
You know how
So-
I remember that year?
How do you remember that year?
Oh, I remember something very interesting happened on the last
I
game
actually
of
should
that
remember
season.
that year.
Yeah, something really
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
yeah.
Of course. Giants won the Super Bowl, yeah.
I was actually
Remember that?
thinking 2012 because that's the worst they ever beat us. But anyway, so so back to it. It's just that when you look at the Tom Brady teams, the teams that have actually won the championship, they weren't as dominant as we view some of these other teams, right? When you look at the 1985 Chicago Bears, to me, it was the greatest team I ever got to watch with my own eyes. You know, that Buddy Ryan defense, in your face, sweetness playing running back, couldn't be stopped. And then you have Jim McMahon, who wasn't necessarily the most skilled of quarterbacks, but he was a difference maker at the position because of attitude. And the 2007 New England Patriots is a team like that, but they came up short. When it was time to make big plays, they didn't make them. In fact, it was Eli Manning, a guy who yesterday, I had Giants fans all in my Twitter, a guy who yesterday I said shouldn't have made more money than Tom Brady. He sneaks away. He gets a pass up to Dave Tyree. He traps it on his helmet. And so some of these New England Patriots teams were very good football teams, but they weren't dominant in a way that makes you remember them. In the end, you remember Belichick and Tom Brady finding ways to win games, but you never remember them walking into a Super Bowl and saying, you know what, this is one of the best teams I've ever seen, and the one that didn't come away with the win.
All of their Super Bowl wins are like by a field goal. And the losses, too. They all could have gone either way, but 6 out of the 9, 2/3 of them went the Patriots' way. It's interesting. I'm gonna start by saying the 86 Giants are the glaring omission from that list. The 86 Giants were not quite the 85 Bears. Not quite, but it won that.
I
Dang
don't remember.
good.
You're much older.
The 86 Giants, maybe they beat the 85 Bears. Like, I don't know. 86 Giants were
physical.
Lawrence Taylor was in his prime, won the MVP and the Super Bowl in that year. Like, that was a great defense, crazy. Okay, but look, I get it. Bears 85, I grudgingly have to say that is the greatest team I've ever seen. I understand your point about, the answer is yes, a Patriots team should be on the list.
And which one should be?
I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
I understand your point. Your point is like what I've often thought about, like, who's the greatest rapper of all time? Actually, there is only one answer, and it's Jay-Z.
Yeah.
But Jay-Z, I can't say at his peak was better than a whole bunch of rappers that I've seen at their peak, right?
So you're going what, by the longevity?
I'm saying that Jay-Z's peak was almost as good as their peak, and he had
No,
the
but why is he the best?
he did it
Because of his
forever.
longevity.
That's what I'm saying.
Got it.
So, but it's not just longevity.
He's being great as well.
What I'm saying is, if the absolute peak is 100, if Cool G Rap or Rakim or whoever was in their prime back in the day, or later on Nas or whoever or Biggie or whoever is 100, and then Jay-Z was a 98, 99, and he did it forever.
Decades.
Right? Okay. So Hank Aaron, set all-time home run champ. I don't count Barry Bonds' ill-gotten goods, right? 755 home runs. He was never the #1 power hitter, but it was 40+ every year forever. And that's really what you're saying the Patriots are. Maybe there were better teams that hit higher peaks, but damn, the Patriots are right there like every year for 20 years basically, right? But there is a team that belongs there, and it's a team that hit the highest peak, and it is the team that lost the Super Bowl. How can you say that if they lost the last game? Let's examine it. That team was setting offensive records. They were undefeated in the regular season. They get through the playoffs till the final game of the season. There were articles written all over the place and pundits saying this is about to be considered the greatest team in the history of American team sports. So that's what we have on the Patriots side. Now I'm on the other side. We were talking about it yesterday. Nate Silver, 538.com. Who's the most clutch playoff quarterback of all time? Eli Manning. Wait a minute, my methodology has him #1 by so much. This is ridiculous. Let's do it again. Still Eli Manning, but by a closer margin. So what happened to the Patriots was maybe the best team ever ran into a real tough defensive team who studied them, had their number, was operating at peak efficiency at the time, And on top of that, had the most clutch quarterback ever, who also got lucky that the play wasn't called dead. And I'm a Giants fan. That Tyree caught the ball against his helmet. That he then threw the touchdown pass to Plex wasn't lucky. But so you mean to tell me a team designed to beat you, playing the best they've ever played, with the most clutch guy also getting lucky, squeezes by you in the last game of the season? That's your only loss, and you're not one of the top 10 teams.
The biggest thing was this.
They're actually number 17 on the list. That 2007 Patriots.
That's
not even close.
I think that's too low. I think they should be closer to the top 10. But you know, everything in football is about hoisting the sticky Lombardi, right? It's about being the best team on that day. And though they set records, right, the way this team looked at the beginning, the middle of the season, it wasn't the way they looked at the end. If you remember the last game, they played that whole game against the New York Giants.
That was the Giants team.
Right, they played that game against New York, and it was a different game. It was actually high scoring. Randy Moss actually got loose. He got behind the secondary. But it was something about that team that people started to figure out, and more than anything, Tom Coughlin and New York Giants figured it out. And when you get to the biggest stage, if you are the best team, you win. Because if you go back to the '85 Bears, the loss was on Monday night to Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. And I still remember it because I was a Bears fan at the time.
Oh, the Bears are number one. I'm saying you don't have a spot in the top 10 for a team that barely didn't go undefeated.
Because you can't lose.
So if Tyree doesn't catch the ball against his helmet, if the ref doesn't just blows the call dead, then that team is the greatest ever. But because Tyree makes that catch, they're not
the Super Bowl. Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.